for authors, filmmakers, entertainment, and all your listening needs. Listen now to Talk Now Radio, where no topic is taboo.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Talk Now Radio. This is your host, Royce the Redneck Radio Man. And joining me today is going to be Sydney Sherman. And before we get the show kicked off too much into, full gear, I guess you'd want to call it, let me remind everybody that Talk Now Radio is listener supported. So if you get a chance to drop by the donation thing or the click on any of the advertising on here, anything that comes off of this here, it goes to, keep the servers on the air and to keep the sponsors out, because sponsors will cut your funding if they don't like what you're putting out on the air, in other words. So I prefer not to have sponsorship if I can get out of it for that very reason. Also, if you want to learn more about Sydney, you can go to www.sydneysherman.net. And if you want to call in and ask a question, the number is 832-632-7904. So, Sydney, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking me to be on the show.
Oh, I'm glad that you agreed to come. I never really had a chance to read your book yet, but I ran across you on Facebook. You seemed very interesting, and, well, I cover all kinds of topics, so that wasn't really a concern for me. So I thought I'd invite you over here and get to know you.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it. I was going to say shame on you for not reading the book, but that's okay.
I can't afford to buy them. I'm on disability. But,
well, I'll tell you what. After the show, we'll talk, and I'll just send you one. How's that?
Okay, that works.
Signed.
Anyway, getting down to the brass tacks, Sydney, why don't you tell the listeners a little something about yourself and what got you interested in writing about this topic? And if I understand it correctly, it's mediumship?
Well, that actually is why I wrote the book. I got really, really tired of hearing the false information that was discussed on TV programs, movies, anywhere you looked, about what actually happens after we die. The term medium, that is used for what I do, but I do not like the term because I think it sounds very carnivalish and people don't take it seriously. I'm still trying to find a term that actually deciphers for people what it is I do. But I have seen energy, spirits, all my life, since the day I was born. I did not know that I was different than anybody else. I assumed everybody could see what I saw and felt what I felt until I was about 6 years old. And I had experience outside of my grammar school when I started to talk to a spirit. And my friend wanted to know who I was talking to, and that's when I realized that she could not see. I still did not realize that they had passed away. I just didn't understand why she couldn't see them. My grandfather, who was also like I am, explained to me that day in very simple terms why it is they're still here and why I can see them and other people can see them too. They just don't know what to look for. And so I've been doing this all my life. It's nothing new for me. It's nothing unusual. It's just a part of my normal day. So the book, I am not an author by trade. I'm a nurse. But the book came out because I just really became frustrated with the information that's out there for people and the opportunities they're missing to be with their loved ones, talk to their loved ones, experience their loved ones every day because they're looking for the wrong things. So that's why I wrote my first book, You're Not Alone.
Okay, now, what would be some of the information that you're referring to that is not correct?
Well, let's start by the whole, and just pretend now you're with me at one of my presentations or even that you read the book. The theory that our loved ones or people who passed away, they're all coming back as evil energies. They're all trying to claw their way out of the ground with their long nails, and they're all here to harm us in some way because somehow now they're negative energy. They're upset they're died. They're trying to avenge their death or to try to find the person who killed them or anything like that. And what I explain to people is it's very, very simple, and this is the words my grandfather used to me at 6 years old, and it's the words that I'm going to tell you now. We are energy. Everything that makes us who we are is energy. And the outside shell, the coating, the physical part of us that makes you identify with other people, it's how you recognize people. That's fallible. That is time-stamped. It can only last so long. Now, if you remember in school, you probably learned about law of conservation of energy, that energy cannot be created or destroyed.
Right.
So if we're energy, and there's a huge agreement, and philosophical scientists, biologists, theorists, they all agree that makes us who we are is energy. If we're energy and energy cannot be destroyed, then technically we cannot die. That coding, that physical part, that can get harmed, it can get cancered, it can get cut, scratched, amputated, bruised, diseased. At some point in time that fails, and there's a separation of our physical self from our energy. So the physical self goes in the ground, cremated, whatever the choice is made at that point. What's left is the whole viable energy. Now you're no longer human at that point. All your human qualities, what made you human, your physical attributes, they all went with your physical body. Energy is not capable of becoming diseased or hurt, and it cannot die. So when the shows on TV talk about the fact that, number one, they're coming back looking like they're all disheveled, they have blood dripping out of their eyes and all sorts of stuff, whatever malady that caused their death, accident, injury, they no longer have that. So they're not going to present that way, and it doesn't even make sense that they would. They're going to present in a form that you're going to recognize, and a form that's going to validate that they're here. The other thing that they do is they tell people that they're calling for help all the time, and they're sorry that they're dead. And anger, resentment, sadness, fear, love, resentment, all those things are human emotions. We have those. Those are gone. So they're not sad that they're dead. They're not sad that or they're missing us, because they don't miss anything. They're not trying to avenge their death. That does not mean the same thing to them anymore. So when I see these things on TV and people are fearful of connecting with their loved ones, and I hear this from people all the time, well, I love my mother, I miss her so much, but I don't want her presenting to me because she'd scare me. Okay, why would your mother scare you? Because she's dead. That's terrible that we have put this in people's minds, and they're missing these opportunities every single day to connect with their loved ones because of the nonsense that is being filtered out there and put out there about what happens after we die.
Yeah, and I've also been told by many of my guests that what you get on TV and what you get in real life are really nowhere near to the same animal.
It's completely different, and as I tell, the people that I lecture to, what I know to be true for me, what I've seen all my life, would not make for a TV reality show. They want gory, they want suspenseful, they want thriller, they want all that stuff. It has nothing to do with that. That's why if somebody doing a show on me, although I've had many offers, I turned them all down, once they hear that I'm not going to talk about the evil demonic people that are going around us and scratching us and hitting us and, doing all this poltergeist activity, obviously they don't want to make a TV show out of it anymore because the drama is gone. So people would much rather be scared to death and unfortunately follow the wrong path because thrill makes us excited than to look at what's going on right around them, use a logical, rational approach, and just enjoy the relationship that they can have with their loved ones who are still here. Because you know what? We're all going to die someday, and we're going to be here, and we're going to be trying to connect with our loved ones, and they're going to be ignoring us just like we're ignoring our loved ones now.
I was just thinking when you said that, did I understand you correctly that poltergeist activity is more or less a fantasy? It's not really a real phenomena?
Oh, poltergeist activity is absolutely very, very real, but people have a false idea of what it is, again, because of the shows. Poltergeist activity is negative energy we create. Studies have been done since as early as the 1940s, and Germany started it, where they have measured the amount of negative energy for people who are in stressful situations, people who have gone through horrific crimes, post-traumatic stress, wars, things like that, and sometimes psychological disturbances. We can create negative energy, and it's considered poltergeist activity, but we create what we are experiencing.
That's interesting.
And that's been proven. That's been proven for years, and there's plenty of research on it. But again, that's not thrilling. But yet if you have somebody who's got a poltergeist demon in their house who's trying to suck the child into an alternate universe, that's more thrilling, so people want to watch that.
Yeah. Now, I was saying it was interesting because Michael Clarkson come on my show once, and he has a book out called Paranormal Phenomena, or was it Poltergeist Phenomena, something like that. And he was going over the same material, only he had a slightly different twist on it. According to him, it was mostly young adults and adolescents who would build this kind of energy. But I thought to myself, I'm sure it could happen in a fully grown person as well.
It can, and he's absolutely right. You mostly see it in teenagers. You know, the hormones kick in, and teenagers go through wild swings of emotion, and they are the most susceptible, absolutely. But yes, you can see it in adults as well, but it is not paranormal activity. Well, actually, it is paranormal because all that means is it's outside the normal. So, yes, technically it's outside the normal, so it's paranormal. But it is not what people think it is. And so I just try to give people education, which is what I've done since I started my first paranormal group, Connecticut Ghost Hunters. I started in 1978. So we're the oldest paranormal group in New England. And we're very different than all the other paranormal groups out there. We do not go into people's homes and tell them what paranormal activities they have or ghosts or anything like that. We go in and educate them on what they're experiencing and how it is not paranormal in nature and tell them why, and then give them tips on how they can recognize what truly is legitimate spiritual activity. So we don't believe in orbs. I mean, our philosophy is if the activity that you are experiencing or the evidence that you have captured can be caused by anything else, you cannot say it's paranormal. And people are running amok, posting all these pictures of dust, moisture, bugs, you know, all this stuff, and going around saying that it's spirits. And it is thousands of reasons that it could, so that picture could have been that way. And unless you can say that there was no other reason for the cause, you can't say it's paranormal, or you just don't have any credibility. So I just won't even look at orb pictures, because in my experience, I'm 52 years old, I have never once seen a spirit manifest themselves in a round circle. Never.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this then. What about demonic activity that can, we hear so much about how it can actually hurt people and it can throw things and very much like poltergeist, only it's, you know, out to get you, for example. Is that also something that's misperceived?
I think so. And again, this is where a lot of people, they want to boo me when I'm in my presentations until I explain it to them, and then they come to me later and they're like, well, you know, that makes a lot of sense. And the bottom line, people want something that makes sense. They want something that's rational. But like I said, I'm 52 years old. I've done over 1,500 investigations. I've seen spirits all my life. I have never once seen a negative energy that is a spirit, somebody who's passed away is coming back to harm you. I tell the story in my presentations that I actually had a family member who was on this earth evil personified. This person was not a nice person. They were a vile human being. But even after they passed, and I can see them now, they are just with everybody else. They're just like everybody else. There's no difference. There's no need to harm, no trying to harm, no need to be that nasty person they used to be. Because, again, that was a human emotion. That was something emotionally wrong with this particular family member that made them act the way that they did. So what I tell people is, no, I can't be in every single home and see every single thing. But, and it's going to be hard to tell you this without demonstrating, but try to visualize what I'm showing you.
Okay.
If you're sitting down having a cup of coffee, you invite me over to your house for a cup of coffee or a beer or whatever. Okay? And all of a sudden, we're sitting across from each other, and all of a sudden I get up for no reason, and I just knock that beer can all over the floor. It goes flying all over your dog, all over the carpet, all over you. Now, you're not going to think I'm evil. You're going to think there's something wrong with me, and why did I just do that? You'll probably be a little angry, correct?
Well, I wouldn't be happy, but I might be understanding depending on your reasons.
No, I just got up for no reason. We were just sitting there, and I just got up and did it. Okay.
Well, you did it for no reason at all. Get out of the house.
Exactly. but I'm not evil. There's something wrong with me, but I'm not evil. Now, let's just say you're sitting down by yourself drinking your beer, and the same thing happens, but nobody's there, and that can of beer goes flying all over the carpet, all over the dog, all over you. Right away, people usually jump up, they get scared, they're like, they know what they saw, and like, what the hell was that? That's exactly what they do. And their first thought is, somebody tried to hurt me. That was a negative act. A negative act, i.e., means demonic and or evil spirit. I have an evil spirit here. They were throwing that can of beer at me. Well, let me tell you something. Your loved ones will, because I have loved ones that do this. If they're trying to get your attention, they can knock over a can of beer. They can slam a door. They can smack you on the arm. They can open up your cabinet doors. They can knock some plates on the floor. They absolutely will get our attention by doing stuff like this. I have a grandmother who smacks me in the back of the head on a regular basis, and I wish she would stop. But that's to get our attention, and I think because if people can't see what's causing the activity, we right away assume it's a negative act and that somebody is trying to harm us. Whereas in the first scenario I showed you, because you saw where it came from, the can of beer going on the floor, you didn't assume I was a demon, maybe not a nice person, maybe a jerk. But again, you saw where the activity came from. Same scenario, just take out the fact that you can't see who's doing it, and we completely change our way of thinking about what it could possibly be.
Well, if I'm hearing you correctly, what I'm getting is you're describing people that are assumed to be demonic based on their behavior after they die or the things they do. I was referring to people that are not, people that were never human at all, that were, like the Bible teaches about demon-type demonic behavior. Would that be something different?
I have never seen, and maybe I'm just very, very fortunate in all my years on this planet, I have never seen demonic energy of any kind, negative energy of any kind, either living as far as, like you said, never living as a human being, maybe, one of the devil's children, if that's what you're referring to.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, I have never, ever seen that. Have I seen demonic or negative energy in living people? Yes, every single day. But not in dead people who have passed or anything else like that. Just like angels. People talk about angels all the time. I've never seen an angel. I see our loved ones. I see our loved ones protecting us and doing things to get our attention and guiding us. Now, maybe to some people that's what they mean by angel. I don't know. But I've never seen what people talk about with the wings. I've never seen it. But again, I can only tell you what I know to be true for me that I have witnessed all my life. Obviously, I'm only one person on this planet, so other people might have different activities and different things. But I tell you, every home that I've gone to where people have told me that they've had demonic activity, I've never once not been able to tell them who in their house was causing the problem. It's usually a family member. And after the story, after they reiterate to me what exactly happened, the story always changed. They would go from being slapped with scratches down their back to I felt somebody smack the back of my arm. That's a big difference. So usually the situation gets created much bigger in their minds because they're scared. But when you really get down to what really, really happened, what they really experienced, it really isn't what they thought it was. So that's what I've seen, and that's all I can tell you about for me.
So you're not really basically saying that there are no angels like in the biblical sense or demons like in the biblical sense. You're saying that there may be, but you haven't actually seen them, so you therefore cannot say one way or the other.
I can't. And again, we usually, how we validate things is we go by what we see. Now, I don't know if this is the proper place to discuss this, but people say to me all the time, well, then you don't believe in God or heaven or hell. That's not true at all. I absolutely believe in God, and I believe in heaven and hell. The thing is that I'm not sure if, what those are names of places that somebody put the names onto. They could have called it, Massachusetts and Connecticut for all you. It's just names that people put on places. And when I see our loved ones with us, they're always, as my grandfather always said, one step to the side. So they're still in the same arena, whether they're not floating up in the skies and they're not screaming from a fiery pit of fire. I don't see that. They're always literally right next to us, still able to make connections with us, still able to see, everything that we're doing. So I can't, so people say to me, well, then you don't believe in heaven and hell. That's not true. I don't know what this place is called. This place is one step to the side. I'm just saying that I do believe in God. I was raised Catholic. I believe in God, and you're not going to convince me otherwise that there's not one. I'm just saying that I have not seen these other places as people discuss them. Right.
And I can understand where you're coming from on that. In fact, I've often had serious thoughts about, is there actually a heaven or a hell? Is it a misperception? Is it a something that people talk about that's been misrepresented and has so much misinfo on it that it could not begin to be recognized by today's men 2,000 years after it was talked about, in other words?
I completely agree. And again, we can only go by what our beliefs are, what we feel in our heart, and what possibly some information that we have from resources. But, I can talk to my grandmother, talk to her every single day, love her to death, and she's around. Sometimes she's a little annoying, but, that was just her. I have asked her, is there a God? Have you met a gentleman named God? Let's not even call him God. Let's call him some other name. It doesn't even really matter what his name is. Is there a higher power? I never, ever, ever get an answer from her, but I never get an answer from anybody that I've asked this about. So maybe I have resigned myself to the fact that maybe there's just some things that we're not supposed to know until it's our time to know.
It could be a matter of faith also, but I got to be honest with you. I got issues with faith as described in the church. Not so much as described in the Bible, but, the Bible doesn't teach blind faith. The church does. That word blind in front of it is a scary word for me.
Well, my mother gets, I said I was raised in the Catholic Church, but I haven't gone to Catholic Church in probably 30 years. I do my talking to my God in my home, and I know the Bible, and I've read the Bible and stuff like that. So, no, I completely agree that, everybody has to find their own faith. And, sometimes somebody telling you when you go to Mass every single week is not necessarily the truth. It's their truth, but not necessarily.
Doesn't mean it's the truth.
Right, correct.
Big difference between somebody's truth and the truth.
That's right. And I would rather try to, can I interpret the Bible? And I've read 4 different types of Bibles. And am I really, really understanding everything it's saying and reading it correctly? How do I know? But, you just do the best you can. You live the best you can. You be a good human being. Try to treat everybody with respect. And it's the most that you can possibly hope for. And then, and we'll see. But as far as the afterlife goes, one of the things I talk to people all the time is suicide. And I had suicide again in my family. And I could never understand when I was a child and I was being raised in the Catholic Church. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but they would always teach in the Catholic Church that, if you commit suicide, you're going to hell for all eternity because you've committed a sin against God. I understand why they would frown upon that and why they'd want to put that in people's minds, because we don't want people doing that. There's always all their other alternatives and other things that can be done to help you. But what didn't make sense to me, even as a child, was, number one, that's not true. And number two, somebody's already hurting over the fact that they just lost a loved one. They're already hurting, they're grieving. Why would you add that to it with the mechanism of how their death occurred? So I never understood why you want to add insult to injury. The person
There's nothing to be gained after the death has occurred anyway. It's too late to do any good.
Right. So you add this on top of this turmoil. Now they've already lost a loved one, but then with the rationale of laying that on them as well, it's just too much to bear. So I've never really understood why the church would do that. The loved one in my family who commits suicide, there again, they come right next to everybody else who's passed away in my family. No different, no better, no worse, no nothing. They're just as whole, just as viable, just as free as everybody else is. So that really has always bothered me because, again, I did experience it in my family. And I really hate when people think that that's what's going on, that there's judgment cast on this person's soul for the rest of eternity, when it's nonsense. My opinion.
Have you ever actually experienced depression?
Myself, yes.
So you can kind of actually look on it from the person who's depressed side because you've been there.
Yeah, I mean, I had never been given a diagnosis of clinical depression, but being a nurse, I pretty much know the signs and symptoms. I believe that I could, and it is in families, and there's, family traits where there's more people and, others that have the trait of being depressed in our family, and I happen to have that in our family. So I do know, that sometimes the brain is under so much turmoil, and you feel like you just can't make your way out. I get that. I understand it. I just didn't like the rationale that the teachings of what I was being taught to just put that burden on a family member. As you said, once the death has occurred, there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, the only time you can do something about it is while the person's still alive, and even then you're not guaranteed it's going to help.
That's right.
I've known people who are depressed, and some people, it comes right down to it, nothing's going to help them. They've already etched their path in stone, and they're going to do it.
Well, yeah, and they've resigned themselves to the fact. And then you also have to talk about, which I had a conversation with a friend the other day about fate. She said I was able to show her, and she absolutely admitted all the different times that her mother had intervened to save her from something. And she says, but I don't understand, how come people die? How come people get in these horrible, terrific accidents or they get murdered? If their loved ones are around protecting them, where were they, sleeping at a party that they weren't there to stop and help this person that day? I'm like, some decisions are out of our hands. When it's our time to go, sometimes it is our time to go. We can't argue with that. And that's when our loved ones, they step back and they let it happen because that's not our decision.
Right.
So maybe with people who choose that, as you just said, sometimes you can't do anything, for them. Maybe it's a higher power's calling for them to move on. That's too clinical for me. I don't know.
So
I am not a psychologist in any way, shape, or form.
Me either. Now, David was in the chat room earlier, was having a little trouble getting it to work because he was listening on his iPhone, and I don't have an iPhone app yet, but he's on his computer now and he can hear us now. So since he's listening and he's in the earshot, I want him to hear this. He told me earlier that you would recognize him when you think about him coming in there with his mom.
See, when you gave me the email,
Ghost Hunter?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's, Mom was, very, as a matter of fact, when I first met them, I didn't even know, obviously, Mom had deceased. And, so it was pretty funny that I picked up on Mom having passed away, and apparently, a lot of the information I gave was not only accurate, but as far as describing the personality was, right on as well. So yes, I do remember that, and, Mom is a very recognizable, standout kind of woman.
So, speaking about people who have passed away, have you ever went back and asked people who have committed suicide and that you were talking to from the other side why they did it and got any kind of interesting responses?
I have asked the person in my family, and, honestly, and the people that can't understand this, but they don't even remember 9 times out of 10 how it is that they died. It's not important to them. It's important to you and me because we're still here, but it's not important to them. So no, my loved one has never answered that question about their death, surrounding their death, or why they did it. For people who I've given readings to, whose loved ones come through who has committed suicide, the same thing. I've asked them, why was it necessary? Why did you feel that? Or even to give them answers, about what led up to it. And I never get a response about their particular death, why or anything like that. And I have to come back to the fact that, again, that's a human thing that we're hung up on. We need to know because we need to heal. They don't have that anymore, so it's not the same thing for them. Doesn't mean that I'm not going to keep trying. I'll keep asking the questions because I have a need-to-know brain, but I haven't got an answer yet.
I'm a little embarrassed. I kind of stuck my foot in my mouth.
Why?
Well, you might be talking about something else, but that wasn't David Roundtree. See, this guy's got a username, Ghost Hunter 6160, and I could have sworn last time I saw David on Facebook or somewhere that was his username. If it ain't, then it's close to it.
Well, I know the Ghost Hunter 6160 email. I just remember I told you the name wasn't coming to me, but the email I know.
Well,
can you ask the person the question for me?
Sure.
Just ask the person, just to make sure it's the right person that I'm thinking of. If they reside in Connecticut.
I'm pretty sure she heard you ask it, but...
Okay. And I'm trying to think of something else without giving out any personal information. You can ask her if she's living in a relative's house. That's not too personal. And then this person is a she, it's not a he.
Yeah. She just told me that much.
Okay. So I say the name David did not, that's why I couldn't put 2 and 2 together, but when you gave me
she resides in Connecticut.
Yep.
And she hadn't answered the other one yet.
Okay. Then
okay.
I'm pretty sure I know exactly who that is.
I'm pretty sure that I'm very embarrassed about thinking it was David Roundtree.
Well, that's okay. Don't worry about it. But again, that person is absolutely right that, about her mom. So.
Yeah, she said that it's, she is living in a relative's house.
Yep. Okay. I know who it is.
Well, I got to tell you, Ghost Hunter 6160, it's nice to meet you, and I do apologize for my making a mistake. If you ever look David Roundtree up, you'll see that he goes by Ghost Hunter, but I think he has different numbers or something. It's either him or Brian that does that. I might be getting people mixed up. I know thousands of people, so it's easy to get them mixed up.
That's okay. It's it's all right. I will look up David Roundtree because now you got me curious. But anyway, I'm so excited to be on the show, so that's fine.
Okay, well, getting back to the show, we're back to your book. Kind of give us an idea, what a prospective buyer might expect to find in your book.
Well, we'll talk about the first book first because I have three. You Are Not Alone is not a story about my life. And a lot of people, I got a little slack from that because people want to know about my life. My life's not that exciting. But what you can find in there is information on what we discussed before about the energy and why they're still here and how you can know they're still here, things to look for, facts about what they feel like, what they smell like, and how you can recognize them versus the fiction that you'd see on TV. And again, I'll give you just a brief overview here. Everybody talks about when the spirits come around, the air gets very cold. And, like I see dead people and the frost coming out of the mouth. They're warm. They're not hot. They're energy so that they're warm. So when people are chasing cold spots, they're going in the wrong direction. They're looking for the wrong thing. So they're going to miss what's standing right next to them. Now, there is a reason why sometimes people get a chill, and I mean a chill. It's just a chill. We have, and here comes the nurse biological part of me coming in, when their energy meets our energy, we all have an energy force field around us. That's because our aura is. Everybody has. It's not something scary. We just have it. When their energy meets with our energy, sometimes it causes our parasympathetic nervous system, which is that fight or flight that we all learn about in school, it causes us to release a lot of serotonin, norepinephrine, and dopamine. That causes us to have a chill. It's kind of like a chill when you think that you're running upstairs from the basement because you think somebody's chasing after you, so you got to get upstairs really quick. It's the same thing. So people are interpreting the spirit as being cold, when it's actually our body that is creating this cold as a response to their energy coming close to our energy. That's all that is. So it's kind of stuff like that in the book that you'll learn about, how they actually feel, how to connect with your loved one. The first thing that you have to do is, just because you think you have an experience, you can't settle for that. Don't settle for that. So I do a little analogy. It's in my book, and it's at the presentations. Let's just say that you were washing dishes, and while you're washing dishes, the smell of Gina Tay comes in front of your nose. And you stop and think, oh, my God, I just smelled Gina Tay. That smells like Mom. Mom used to wear that all the time. I really miss Mom. I wish she was still here with me. And we sigh, and we continue to wash the dishes. That's what people do every day. And I tell people, why are we doing this? You have them right there. We don't take it the next step. The next step you have to do is you have to find the rational cause, because 9 times out of 10, it is something in your environment, and it's something that can be explained. So you smell the dishwashing liquid, the Glade plug-in freshener. You just look to see if something else could have smelled like that. Once you've done that, if you can't find a cause, then you say, Mom, was that you? Are you close to me? I thought I smelled the Gina Tay. Can you come close to me again, Mom? I'd love to know you're here. And you wait. If you don't get that smell again, finish washing your dishes. No harm, no foul. If you do get that smell again, tell them, Mom, thank you. I smelled it. It smells so good. It reminds me of you. Can you please come close to me so I can smell it again? You repeat this 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't care if you do it all day long. Once you have gotten them to repeat that smell on command over and over and over again, after you've done the rational thing first, you better stop washing them dishes, go in a nice private, quiet room somewhere, sit down and start talking to them. Because that leaves no shadow of a doubt that they are there with you. That's what is in the book. It's things like that that you can do to absolutely make sure that they are here, how you can recognize them, what you should be looking for. And then my favorite chapter at the end of this book, You Are Not Alone, is how to recognize a fake or a fraud in the field. I get more emails on that chapter and a lot of hate mail from psychics and mediums throughout New England, and actually some along the West Coast too. Because, I'm sorry, there's some things that they do that it's very obvious, and once people learn what to watch for, I have people email me back all the time and tell me, I went to go see a psychic, I went to see a medium, and she did exactly what she said she was going to do. So I turned around, I walked out the door, and I didn't pay her. And that's my most favorite part of the book. I want people to stop being taken advantage of. I want people to know that they can do this themselves. Everyone can learn how to connect with their loved ones, maybe not to the extent that I can, but we can all learn how to use our senses that we already have to know when they're here so we can connect with them. And stop taking chances on people who are offering something that they probably can't provide. So that's You Are Not Alone.
So let's say, for example, if you're talking to somebody that claims to be a psychic and during the course of conversation you just happen to mention to them that your wife believes that they're reincarnated and that in a past life they were a Jew in the concentration camps, and then this psychic 3 or 4 sentences later says, your wife probably overstocks food, doesn't she? She probably ain't psychic. She probably got the clue from the concentration camp that somebody in past life who couldn't eat hardly would probably stock food in this life, in other words.
You are so smart, and I mean it sincerely. This is what I teach people all the time. We give away clues all the time. They are so good at looking at clues that you give. You're wiggling in your chair, you're wiggling of your fingers, your eyebrows furrowing, you're staring your eyes. They can tell. They can tell just by a little clue. You don't have to open up your mouth if they have a direct hit. They use leading questions. And a lot of times what they do is exactly what you just said. They get you to say something, and they come back and reformulate it in a different way so it looks like they're not tied in. And I tell people to watch for that all the time. When I gave readings for years, and I've given readings for years and years and years, I always told people from the moment you come in my house, you sit on that couch, you keep your mouth closed. I don't want to hear a thing. I don't want to hear a yes. I don't want to hear a no. I don't want to hear a peep. And so for the people that couldn't do that because they were just so excitable, I can't tell you how many readings I gave with my back turned toward people because I just didn't want to see the expressions because they couldn't contain themselves. And that is the only way you're going to know that you are getting the information from their loved one and not from them. And even though I'm 52 years old, I need validation for myself. I need to know that I am getting this information. It's important for me. So, yes, they do this all the time. There was somebody, and I'm not going to say who because I get in trouble all the time for this, on TV just probably a couple months ago, who was in a packed auditorium for $250 a ticket. And there was an elderly woman sitting in the front where they have the aisles going up. She was sitting on the aisle seat. And the reason she was sitting in the aisle seat is because she was extremely obese, and she needed an oxygen concentrator, so that had to go in the aisle. So here's this woman who's completely very obese, elderly, and she's sitting right in the front. And this person, I hate even calling him a person because he's a liar, comes off the stage, walks right up to her, gets down on his knee, and says, I feel that you have a hard time getting air. I feel that it's hard for you to fill your lungs. Your loved ones are telling me that sometimes it's just very difficult for you to breathe. And the audience is clapping, and the woman's crying, and I'm sitting at home thinking to myself, are you kidding me?
Was the oxygen tube a clue?
The oxygen, really? And people want to believe so badly. They'll believe this nonsense, and this person gets away with it for a packed auditorium at $250 a piece. It's a shame. They're charlatans. They ought to be ashamed of themselves. And this is why I spend most of my time giving people these clues of what they need to look for. And I don't care if I get hate mail. I will get hate mail for the rest of my life. If these people don't like it, maybe they need to pack up their shop and stop doing this stuff.
You know that the church field's not any better. You got people getting out there on TV, no less. Well, you was talking about TV too, I think. But Benny Hinn, one of the biggest names out there, doing fake healings. Peter Popoff is another. And I'm naming names, but again, I don't care who gets upset with me. If they're going to get mad at me for telling the truth, I'm sorry.
Well, I had, at my presentations, I do name names. As a matter of fact, there's a particular woman who lives in our area out here, which doesn't mean anything to you because you're not familiar with the area. But she literally, when you walk into her place, she's got the crushed velvet drapes. She's got the scarf over the lampshade. She's got the eye of newt in the corner. She's got the skull head. She's got the incense burning, and she's got some kind of weird music. And she comes out wearing literally a gypsy outfit.
In other words, she got downright corny in her effort to convince.
Well, you know what? People think, because I did a little study for my book to try to find out, psychology of people that would even fall for something like this. You don't need all that stuff. That is trying to set you up, set your brain up for an experience that you're hoping to have. That's all that is. So then my friend brought me to this place because she said to me, she goes, Sydney, I found a medium who's just as good as you, and you need to go see her. So I got excited because, hey, I'd like a reading someday too myself, right? So we went there. And when I walked in and saw all this stuff, I looked at my friend. I'm like, you, like me? Really? You're lucky. When people come over to my house for a reading, you're lucky if I got out of my pajama pants, okay? So you don't need all that stuff. It's smoke and mirrors. She made me stay. The woman handed me some cards, and she says to me, just fill out the information on these cards. I'll be with you in a few minutes. Oh, excuse me. She goes, and your loved ones and I will be with you in a few minutes. Like I kind of have to wait for her, for my loved ones to be around. And the questions on the card were, who are you wishing to see? When did they die? What did they die from? What was their favorite color? What was this, that, and everything else? And I looked at her when she got, I said, what? I'm not filling this out. I said, what do you need this for? And, well, it helps me connect. I said, no, it doesn't help you connect. It gives you all the information. This is nonsense. I said, so well, guess what? You're not getting paid. You're not giving me a reading. I'm going to give you a reading for free. So I started giving this reading about her stepmother who raised her and blah, blah, blah. The woman starts bawling like a baby and literally looks at me, and I honestly thought I was on Candid Camera. I'm sure you remember the show.
Did you know that show's making a comeback?
I heard. That's great.
Anyway, go ahead.
She looks at me, and she says, oh, my God, you're real. And I'm like, wait a minute. She just said this to me literally. My friend was sitting next to her, and I looked at her, and I said, you know what? I am. I said, I'm going to tell you something right now. What you're doing makes me sick. You prey on people who are already in pain, and you take advantage of them, and there's nobody lower on this earth than you. So I'm not going to charge you for the reading I just gave you, but what I want you to do is stop doing what you're doing today. Right now, I want you to stop. Well, as I tell my audiences, I'd like to tell you that she has stopped, but every time I drive by there, her parking lot is packed. So now, Royce, let me ask you a question. If you went into a place like this with all the lovely carpeting and all this other stuff and the curtains, and somebody hands you a card and asked you all these questions, would you really feel that you got a legitimate reading?
No, I would not, but I wouldn't handle it quite the way you did either. I would fill the card out, but then I would have some pre-planned answers and responses of my own waiting for her when she starts telling me all that stuff.
I cannot, when it comes to this topic, as many of the people who know me know, I don't fool around with this, and I get very nasty with people because I'm just tired. People are hurting. When somebody dies, there's no such loss that can be any worse than that. People's heart are breaking. They're hurting. And all they're doing is taking advantage of them. So I don't fool around with that. So, yes, I got a little nasty with her. And I make sure when I go to my presentations, I tell people the road that she's on, the color of her building, the color of the roof tiles that are on her, and that she's across from a Chevy dealership. And I don't care if she gets mad at me. I really, really don't. So I'm very well respected for what I do. It's taken me a long time for people to not spit in my face anymore. and to do a lot of things that did not believe, but I've earned the respect of a lot of people, and I've had to work very hard at it. And when I get emails from these TV shows, these paranormal reality shows all the time, that they want to either get information from me or me to give them information about somebody they can talk to for a show or anything like that, I always tell them the same thing. I don't play the game you're playing. It doesn't work like that. I don't care how much money you're offering me. I'm not going to do it. Now, if you want to do a show on the reality of the afterlife, I'd be very happy to do that. But you don't, because it's not gory, it's not chilling, it's not suspenseful, and there's no drama.
Well, do you do readings for free, or you usually charge?
I did readings. First of all, I don't do readings anymore. But I did readings for free for the first, I think, 25 years that I did readings. It wasn't until the end that I started charging, and I'll tell you why. I never wanted to charge people, and I didn't for the many, many years. The reason I started charging people is because it's a psychological thing. The people that I charged the money for the reading, I always give education at the end of the readings as well. Those are the people that followed through, and they did what I asked them to do, and they had great results with connecting with their loved ones. The people that got it for free did not. So they enjoyed the readings, they loved the readings, but they didn't follow through on trying to do something for themselves to help themselves. So it's almost like a valued thing. We, unfortunately, in our society, value things that we have to pay for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And so I started charging. It wasn't a lot of money, believe me. When some people heard what I was charging, my readings were 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours long. My readings were not 15 minutes long. I'd never done a 15-minute reading in my life. So believe me, it was not a lot of money, but then I just stopped doing them. I just stopped doing it, and I just decided that, you know what, people don't want to help themselves, I'm going to make them help themselves. So if they want to come to me, they're going to have to learn how to do this. So I do more workshops than anything else now, and the lectures and presentations, which I do for free.
Well, I tell you, at the risk of sleeping on the couch for about a week, there are a lot of people out there who, like my wife, will show up at every free reading, wanting a past life reading, no matter how many they've already had, and they'll never do it for themselves.
You're right. You're absolutely right. And it's like I said, it's very, very sad because I don't want people to wait to talk to their loved ones. You know, people will come to me several times, and they'll have questions that they want to ask their dad or their mom. And I'm like, why are you bringing them here to me? Sit in your house, ask yourself. I've taught you how to ask them. I've told you what to look for. You can do this. You did it in front of me in my living room. You saw the results. You saw things move. You felt them touch you. You saw them knock the picture over on the side. You saw them do these things. Why won't you do it in your own home? And again, the ones that didn't pay for it, it's like, well, it's because it's easier for us to come here and just let you do it. No, I don't want to make your life easy. I want you to do this yourself, because the more you start having experiences and the more you start connecting with your loved one, the easier it's going to get and the more natural it's going to be.
You don't want to give them a fish, you want to teach them to fish.
Were you on my website?
No. Well, actually, yeah, I did. I got your material, but I didn't really pay attention to read anything much.
That's exactly what I have on my website, and I always pronounce the guy's name wrong, but it's Lao Sao, I think is his name. He says, give the man a fish and he eats for a day, teach the man a fish and he eats for a lifetime. And that's why I tell people, you can do this yourself, and you need to. And the workshops, the educational things I do are very well attended, and people are doing wonderful, wonderful things. And I would have told you in the very beginning of this that I'm not a teacher. I don't even think I am a very good author, but when it comes to the subject, I do very well. But I think I just have so much drive in me to make sure people understand the facts, that I can get the information out. And people are doing really well, and that's what makes me more thrilled even over the book, I got to tell you. The other 2 books I wrote were for gifted children. It's called Gifted Innocence and My Gifted Innocence. Gifted Innocence is for the adults. My Gifted Innocence is for the child. And the reason I wrote that is because I had all these parents bringing me their kids, telling me that their kids were gifted. And sometimes they were, and sometimes they were not. And so I figured, let me take the mystique out of this, because as a nurse, I cannot tell you how many parents I've had bring their kids to wherever I worked or whatever, and the kids would be on all this psychotropic medications because the kids
That's something else I don't approve of, but
and me neither. But they're taking all these medications when, honestly, there was nothing wrong with the kids. The kids really were seeing who they saw, and they really were hearing what they heard. But in our society, that's not right. There's got to be something wrong with you. So let's shove pills in these kids' faces. And,
then they can really hallucinate.
Exactly. So I've had many parents who've had their kids who are being seen by therapists and on all these meds for years brought their kids to me. And sometimes I'd have to tell their parents, I'm sorry, that there is no ability that your child has, so continue with the psychiatrist or whatever other alternative method you'd like. But I'm very happy to say there was many kids that I was able to get off of the medications because the parents listened. And a lot of the parents went back to the psychiatrist and said, look, you may not want to listen to this. You may not want to hear it. It may not fit in your milieu of treatment. But, there's nothing wrong with my child. There's absolutely nothing wrong with my child. She just happens to have an ability that some people have and some people don't. And it really is just biological. And I explain it to people all the time. It's not that I'm a special person or anything like that, but it's been well proven years and years ago, and I think that first study was done in Switzerland or Germany. I could be wrong about that one. Sometime around 1927, where they took people who stated that they were gifted while they were alive, put them through all these tests, and then these people donated their brain to science. Many of them did, not all. And they found that these people that were legitimately gifted while alive, their brains had a larger hippocampus. Are you familiar with what that is in the brain?
Yeah.
So if they have a larger hippocampus than most people, one of the things the hippocampus does is it helps with your senses. It helps you be able to hear better, see better, things like that. That's one of the things it does. It does other things. They also had a larger concentration of serotonin and norepinephrine, which is a neurotransmitter, which means, again, heightened sense of being able to hear, see, smell. So if that's the case, it really is simply biological. And so I try to take the, what's the word that I like to use all the time, all this, the boo factor, all the scary stuff out of this, because just like one person has the gift of being able to sing opera or play classical music, I can just have an extrasensory ability to be able to hear, see, smell. That's it. Nothing big deal. No biggie.
Okay, now, real quick, because we're running low on time, I don't want you to get out of here without giving you a chance to, mention anything that you'd like to mention that I didn't think to ask.
Well, I think we just talked about my whole life. Let me see. Well, okay. I'll give you a little tidbit. Something that you or somebody else can do at home. When our loved ones come close to us, and literally come very close to us, and they're coming toward us very quickly. I don't know if you've ever done this before, but if you ever seen where people take balloons, they rub them on their head, and they stick them up on the wall?
Yeah, that's static electricity.
Right. During my workshops, when a spirit comes up to you very quickly like that, that's exactly the feeling. So in my workshops, we practice that, and we take away the eyes, because the eyes are the biggest thing to tell us what is occurring. Well, you're not going to see the spirit do that, so that's why we got to take out the eyes to recreate the scenario. So I put a blindfold on. And you take these balloons and you pass them to different parts of people's bodies and not tell them that you're holding the balloon. So people get used to that feeling, and they can tell you where it is you're holding it, because then when they're at home sitting in their lounge chair watching Wheel of Fortune, and all of a sudden they feel this like static electricity, they know that a loved one's near them, and they can start the conversation. Another thing which is really cool, and the whole reason we can all do this is because we just have to relearn to use our senses. So very quickly, I'm going to ask you a couple questions, because this is what I do, and I think it really will give people an idea of how they can do it themselves. Again, taking out eyesight, because you're not going to be able to see a spirit do anything, so you got to get rid of that sight. If I put several different foods under your nose, you tell me if you think you'd be able to identify them by not looking at them, okay? Soda, Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola, definitely.
Okay. How about tea, a tea bag?
Most likely.
Coffee.
Oh, there is no mistaking.
Chocolate.
Pretty sure.
Cigarette.
Oh, yeah, I'd be gagging and coughing.
Okay. So, and again, not for all these, and these are just a short list because I usually go on and on and on. I will tell you that probably half, if not maybe a little more than half of those items, if you were blindfolded and somebody put it under your nose and didn't tell you what it was, you would not be able to identify the smell. And
I'd have to see that one.
And this is what people tell me all the time in my presentations, like, yeah, that's not true. So I usually pick a couple of people out of the audience, and I prove it to them. I blindfold them, and I don't tell them what I'm putting under their nose. And it's amazing how they actually get very angry with me afterwards because they think I tricked them. I didn't trick you. What I'm trying to explain to you is our brain is what deciphers what it is we're seeing, hearing, smelling. If you take away the sight, one of our biggest ways of identifying something, and just go with the nose, things don't really smell the way we think they do. Now, what's even more cool is let's just say that I held that cigarette underneath your nose, not a smoked cigarette, but a regular cigarette under your nose, and you could not smell it. Or maybe you said it was a chocolate chip cookie, or maybe you thought it was a flower, okay? Because sometimes people will say stuff like that.
You got to be kidding.
No, seriously. It's amazing.
Wow.
Once you take that blindfold off and the eye now sees that cigarette, now you can smell that cigarette because the brain has identified it. It's a familiar smell. Our brains do not function like people think. Our brains can be tricked on a regular basis, and they are, by sight, smells, hearing, and everything else. That's why it's very important to know what it is you're really smelling, really feeling, really hearing, and really seeing. And that's why these workshops are going over so well, and people are doing so well with them, because they learn how to differentiate things as they really should be. And it's as simple as that. There's no hocus pocus. It really is as simple as that.
Yeah, well, I can understand what you're talking about. I happen to know that when I see people and I watch them in their day-to-day lives, that a person can eat a Hershey bar today and eat one next week, and you could change something about it slightly. They would not know the difference from the first one because they could not remember what the first one tasted like a week later unless it had a huge difference. I mean, because most people, they just don't have an eye for or even a mind for detail, in other words.
They don't. And you got to remember, our ancestors used their senses a lot more than we did because they had to. They didn't have the internet and Google and all this other stuff. We had the same senses they did. We just have to relearn to use them and use them the correct way. So like you said, they don't, if there's a slight change in something that they're used to, we don't have, as you just said, the eye for detail. We don't pay attention to that stuff. Our ancestors had to. And we just don't. We take for granted stuff. So we have to relearn how to smell and stuff. It's not hard. It just takes a few minutes. It really is very, very simple, very easy, very rational. It's the way it should be.
Yeah, actually it was. And I've had authors, I've read their books that have written about the difference in the senses of the ancients and the senses of us today. And, it's the industry, I think, that's did it.
Oh, absolutely. We soak in everything on TV, in the movies, and we let that all think for us. We've lost the ability to think for ourselves, and we gotta stop that. So, I don't know what time you have.
I got about 7:58, and I was just fixing to mention that we needed to make a wrap. I've got to tell you, I've enjoyed having you. You've been a great guest, and you're always welcome to come back. Just stay in touch with me and give me a holler when you're ready.
I will. And, again, I already said it the other day, but happy birthday again. Okay.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. 55 yesterday, not getting any younger.
You have an excellent rest of the evening, and thank you so much for having me on.
You too now. And, by the way, I'll be in touch with the links for the archives over the next few days.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. You have a good one. Listeners, thank y'all for listening in. Don't forget to come see me tomorrow. I'm interviewing Edwin Becker about his book, True Haunting. He had quite some experience in his house, and we'll be talking about it tomorrow at freedomslips.com. So hope to see you there.